Imagine being drugged by your own government without your knowledge. Welcome to one of the darkest and most secretive programs in U.S. history. Tonight, guys, we're going to be talking about MKUltra. And, welcome back to the Wild Archive, everybody, to another episode. And, so yeah, if anybody doesn't know what MKUltra is, for those people who don't know what it is, because there's a lot of people who that knows what it is. But for those who don't know, basically what it was is the government, CIA did mind control experiments from like the 1950s up into the 70s. And, they use LSD on them, hypnosis, probably a whole bunch of other drugs, cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, all that kind of stuff, I'm sure. And, they just wanted to see what humans, how humans would react to being on, like, that much LSD, or, a super amount of LSD or whatever. And, they just want to control human behavior. And I think that's really what they were trying to do. They just want to, that's what I believe it really was. It was like, they were using drugs and everything, LSD, I'm sure a whole bunch of other type of drugs, and they wanted to put the drugs, they wanted to put the people on the drugs and control them. I think that's what the bottom line was, and, this doctor, his name was Dr. Sidney, Gottlieb. He was the chemist, basically behind the experiment. And, so I'm just kind of giving you a rundown of what it was. And, it wasn't like, okay, the type of people that the government or the CIA used were like kind of nobodies to society. Prostitutes and homeless people and maybe desperate people, maybe I don't know this for sure, but maybe they offered them money, drugs. I'm sure there was people on drugs too. Drug addicts, and everything. So, I kind of want to, let's talk about, kind of like the whole MKUltra thing. I'm going to read some stuff from Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia is not really a trustful source, but we're going to use it just for the time being. So, for those who don't know, Project MKUltra was a human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. The term MKUltra is a CIA cryptonym. MK is an arbitrary prefix standing for the Office of Technical Service, and Ultra is an arbitrary word out of a dictionary used to name this project. The program has been widely condemned as a violation of individual rights and an example of the CIA's abuse of power. No kidding. With critics highlighting its disregard for consent and its corrosive impact on democratic principles. Project MKUltra began in 1953 and was halted in 1973. MKUltra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental states and brain functions, such as the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs, LSD, and other chemicals without the subject's consent. Additionally, other methods beyond chemical compounds were used, including electrical shocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and other forms of torture. Project MKUltra was preceded by Project Artichoke. That's a funny name. It was organized through the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence and coordinated with the United States Army Biological Warfare Laboratories. The program engaged in illegal activities, including the use of U.S. and Canadian citizens as unwitting test subjects. MKUltra's scope was broad, with activities carried out under the guise of research at more than 80 institutions aside from the military, including colleges and universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated using front organizations, although some top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. Project MKUltra was revealed to the public in 1975 by the Church Committee, named after Senator Frank Church of the United States Congress and General Ford's United States President Commission on CIA Activities within the United States, the Rockefeller Commission. Investigative efforts were hampered by CIA Director Richard Helms' order that all MKUltra's files be destroyed in 1973. Obviously, The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and on the small number of documents that survived Helms' order. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents relating to MKUltra, which led to Senate hearings. Some surviving information about MKUltra was declassified in 2001. Okay, so okay, I kind of want to talk about the guy here who was kind of guiding, the experiments, the chemist guy, Sidney, what's his name? Sidney Gottlieb or whatever. Let's kind of read about him. I want to read about him and see, how he got to, operating MKUltra. Because I know he did some other experiments too. Not just MKUltra is the biggest one, but he did some other ones too. So he was born on August 3rd, 1918. And he died March 7th, 1999, at the age of 80 in Virginia. And he went to a whole bunch of, universities and everything, and he was part of the CIA. So we're not going to read everything here, but we'll read a little bit, touch on the main points. So Gottlieb's first government position was at the United States Department of Agriculture, where he researched the chemical structure of organic soils. He later transferred to the Food and Drug Administration, where he developed tests to measure the presence of drugs in the human body. Gottlieb grew bored with this work and sought a more challenging position. In 1948, he found a job at the National Research Council, where he described being exposed to some interesting work concerning ergot alkaloids as vasoconstrictors and hallucinogens. He soon relocated to the University of Maryland as a research associate, dictated to study metabolisms of fungi. Interesting. On July 13th, 1951, Gottlieb reported for the first day of work for the CIA. Then Deputy Director for Operations Alan Dulles hired him on Ira Baldwin's recommendation. Baldwin had founded and run the biowarfare program at Fort Detrick years later, and had kept Gottlieb in his orbit. Gottlieb had advanced knowledge about poisons. In the 1950s, communist infiltration concerned many Americans. These Cold War-era fears also contributed to the CIA expanding its experimental methods over the next 2 decades, warning that the USSR and the People's Republic of China had already mastered brainwashing and were using it against their own citizens and prisoners. I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Obviously. Project Bluebird was already underway when Gottlieb had brought on board. Bluebird experimented with special interrogation techniques on captured prisoners at black sites like Camp King and Villa Schuster, using drugs to attempt to break ego control and elicit information. Bluebird lacked scientific knowledge and discipline. Dulles wanted Gottlieb to get back on course. After proceeding through training, he was named chief of the newly formed chemical division of the Technical Services Staff, or the TSS. On August 20th, 1951, Dulles ordered Bluebird to be expanded and centralized, and renamed the Project Artichoke. Oh, okay, so that's what Project Artichoke was. Okay. Which became a power base for Gottlieb. Dulles was promoted to Deputy Director of Central Intelligence shortly after expanding Artichoke's scale. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going, because there's some interesting stuff in this. Dulles and Gottlieb both believed there was a way to influence and control the human mind that could lead to global mastery. They also wanted a truth serum, something that had been investigated during the days of the OSS, but never fully realized. Gottlieb conducted experiments using THC, cocaine, heroin, and mescaline, if that's how you pronounce it, before realizing LSD had not been properly tested or investigated by the agency. After trying LSD for the first time himself, Gottlieb accelerated LSD experiments at the agency, testing it on agents who agreed to be dosed under controlled environments, and some who agreed to be dosed by surprise. Oh my god, I don't know if I would want to be dosed by surprise. That's kind of it's kind of scary. Okay. LSD had been synthesized only 13 years earlier. After months of experimenting on agents, Gottlieb sought help from the Special Operations Division at Detrick. Gottlieb's first 18 months at the agency led to some frustrating discoveries. The drugs he was experimenting with were not the truth serums he had hoped, and often hindered interrogations rather than aiding them. He knew Dulles, now the Director of Central Intelligence under President Eisenhower, would approve his proposals. Gottlieb and Richard Helms, then Chief of Operations for Directorate of Plans, wrote a memorandum to send to Dulles. Dulles formally approved Project MKUltra on April 13th, 1953. His brother, John Foster Dulles, was appointed Secretary of State, giving further diplomatic cover to the project. Yeah, no doubt. On April 10th, Dulles described the program and others like it in his speech to alumni of Princeton University, referencing the new battlefield of brain warfare as the battle for controlling the human mind. He described the program as something the Soviet Union was doing rather than He described the program as something the Soviet Union was doing rather than something the CIA was pioneering. Gottlieb selected multiple researchers, scientists, and ex-OSS members to work for him under MKUltra sub-projects. Those contracted conducted experiments on Gottlieb's behalf and reported their findings to him. He sponsored physicians such as Donald Edwin Cameron and Harris Isbell in controversial psychiatric research, including non-consensual human experiments. Gottlieb administered LSD and other hallucinogenic drugs to unwitting subjects and financed psychiatric research and development of techniques that would crush the human psyche to the point that it would admit anything. He was named as the person who gave Army bacteriologist Frank Olson LSD at the MKUltra retreat. They had a retreat for this thing? Wow. Leading to Olson's mental spiral and death a week later. Wow. That is interesting. I can't believe that. That's crazy. So he went to MKUltra retreat and took some LSD, lost his mind, and died, I guess. Okay, that's kind of what we're there. I mean, there's a lot more. There's a lot more. There's a lot more, but we're not going to read everything. Let's kind of touch on some. I wanted to see some accounts from people who were part of MKUltra, victims, and I'm going to read this little piece right here. This is from Global. If you want to look this up, it's from Global Times. This article is called U.S. Covertly Experiments Mind Control on People Across Continents for Decades. No official apology. And I'll read a little bit of it. So, they've taken away enough from me. I don't remember my birth name. I am not in contact with my children. It's a very degrading, devastating reality, said 72-year-old Miriam Rahula, an MKUltra victim who now lives in Grand Prairie, Texas. MKUltra is the code name of a human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. and its notorious spy agency, the CIA, obviously. It started on April 13th, 1953, and lasted for 20 years. That's a long time. It was the height of the Cold War, and the U.S. designed covert operation, among which was MKUltra, aimed at developing tools that could be used against Soviet bloc enemies to control human behavior with drugs and other psychological manipulators. Psychedelic drugs, paralytics, and electroshock therapy, all heinous and inhumane techniques, were clandestinely but routinely used on humans. They included citizens from the U.S. and other countries who were unwitting test subjects and encapsulation of immense human rights violation. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is just my thought, but like, I don't know what gives the government the right to, do these kind of experiments on its own people. I mean, it's not shocking that it happened, because at the end of the day, humans do bad things all the time. Look at a whole bunch of other countries have done worse and similar things. I know Russia has its version of the MKUltra, so does China, and probably maybe some Middle Eastern countries too as well, and maybe some Latin American countries. Because it's all about controlling people. If you control the people, you control everything. You can control the population. You can control what the media says, control people's thoughts, what they think, and change their minds. So, and I know they were trying, and it was a time of war, and communism and everything with the Cold War and Russia and the USSR, and maybe because what they're saying is like, oh, we only did it because we wanted to get Russian spies, and we wanted to learn how to torture them and what kind of information can we get out of you. And but I disagree. I don't think so. I think that, I'm sure that probably was a motive for them to start the experimentation, but I know that they were, trying to control the people too, the U.S. population as well, not just, foreign enemies. But let's read on. Many experiments were conducted in Fort Detrick as a key base of operations. Many people died as a result of these experiments. Those who survived had their memories forcibly erased. Imagine, that's crazy, just imagine, sitting there in the seat or wherever, and they inject you with LSD or some other drug, and you're sitting there, thinking about your family, thinking about loved ones, your memories, maybe your life is flashing before your eyes. And because I don't know because I know everybody doesn't react the same to drugs, obviously. Some people have fun, taking LSD, and some people don't. They freak out and they have a bad trip or whatever. So I know for the people maybe who's they got other mental issues too. Maybe they're schizophrenic or something else, and you give them LSD. They're gonna go crazy. They're gonna be out of their mind. Those who survived had their memories forcibly erased. Okay, forgetting their names and having their personalities irrevocably altered. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, that kind of. That's just crazy. Like, yeah, your whole personality changes after taking. I'm sure it wasn't LSD, but I'm sure, a whole bunch of. I'm pretty sure they had fentanyl back then. I could be wrong. I don't know, but heroin and other drugs. Taking all that. Your mind's gonna go. It's just gonna be gone. So those who survived had their memories forcibly erased, forgetting their names and having their personalities irrevocably altered, and faced threats to their lives, living in fear for the remainder of their days. more than 40 years on, the physical, mental, emotional, social horrors, and injuries are still with her, Rahula told the Global Times. That's just, that's mind-boggling, because I'm sure these people, these victims were threatened with their lives. If you say something, you're enemy of the state, and if you say anything, maybe they threaten their family or people they know, people they love, and it's sad. U.S. mind control scheme. The psychosis induction of Rahula started when she was 5 or 6 while attending a parade in London. She was then brought to the U.S., where CIA operatives would continuously use a recording played over tape recorder to embed in her mind what they wanted her to become in her own memory. That is crazy. Like, how could they do that? I mean, obviously they had the technology, and see, this is why when people say drugs alter your mind, I believe that to a certain extent. I don't think every drug out there, if you smoke weed or whatever, I don't think it's gonna alter your mind into like something like this, where your personality changes and where you forget who you are, stuff like that. But when you're smoking it, it may do that. But I digress. But like, I know LSD for sure probably maybe does do something like that. I don't know. I've never been on it, so I can't say. But I've heard stories about the wrong people taking it to where it does do that to them, and it alters their brain function for the rest of their lives. So I don't know. But okay, let's read this. She said, I remember one time I had been given electric shock treatments and I was returned to a room. When I regained a little bit of consciousness, I heard one of the hospital staff say something to the effect of, why do they do this to her? Why are they giving her so many shock treatments? Said Rahula. Rahula believed that what happened to her was political because of her Iranian heritage. Well, the U.S. hates Iran, obviously. I'm not shocked, but she was then relocated, taken away, and lived and was educated in Russia afterward. At 19, she married an American and moved to the U.S. 7 years later. A member of the U.S. law enforcement agency entered her house and told her she had to be put into protective custody. Although she greatly protested, she was forced to go. She greatly protested. She was forced to go. She was not able to contact her husband or her son, who was about 6 years old at the time. It was the second time that she would be an unwilling participant in a mind control program. Rahula said she had been living someone else's lie. And then this is what she said. You remain physically drained because there's something that drains your spirit. You cannot hold a conversation with anyone regarding a situation because everyone that is allowed in your life goes along with the lie, either out of total indifference or complacency, or because they build an allegiance to the government that they have to continue this lie or something would happen to them. Oh yeah, the CIA is, I mean, we know they blackmail. It's not a surprise. The CIA mind control schemes, mind schemes did not just remain on U.S. soil, but were extended to U.S. allied countries, including Denmark, Australia, and Canada. Wow. That doesn't surprise me. I know, I don't know a lot about these countries. I don't know a lot about Denmark and Australia and Canada. I mean, when it comes to, politics, their politics, I don't know a lot about, except for maybe Canada. I know a little bit more than Denmark and Australia. But I'm not surprised that they would try to do the same mind control techniques. I mean, because it's power. You have power over the people. Especially if you did the mind control, experiments on a lot of people. I don't know how many experiments that they did officially, because they could say, the CIA could say a number, but who knows if they're lying or not. Let's go on. In December 2021, a Danish documentary titled "The Search for Myself" was released, leveling claims against the CIA that in the early 1960s it had financially aided experiments on 311 Danish children, a good number of whom were orphans or adopted. The filmmaker Per Winnick himself was one of them. If any of you guys know who that is, I don't know who that is. I guess he's a Danish filmmaker, but that's not. It's not surprising that they're going to operate on people that society, doesn't really. No, I'm not going to say cares about, but I mean a little bit, but like just doesn't. It's just not in their everyday life. Unless you live in a big city, you're going to see homelessness a lot, and I'm sure you'll see prostitutes a lot, but you're not going to see a lot of orphan people, and not. When I say see, I'm not meaning like with your eyes, but like running into orphan people. Now, I know maybe some people don't tell you they're orphans or adopted. That could be the case too. People could keep that to themselves because it's personal. But my point is that the CIA, targeted the people who society kind of just deemed down. Homelessness and prostitutes and people that society doesn't care about, because if they go missing, nobody's going to look after them. No one's going to search for them. And then if you try to tell the cops, they're not, the cops can't do nothing, against the CIA. But if you try to, maybe report about it to a journalist or whatever, and get it out there, get your story out there, you're going to be shunned, maybe by people, because they may think you're crazy. Like, oh, you're a nobody. You're a drug addict. You're a prostitute. You're a homeless person. You don't matter. So, why should we believe anything you say? So yeah. Let's see. Let's keep. Okay, hang on. Let's go to. Okay, now I want to dive into some theories about MKUltra. Who else could they have manipulated? Who else could they have experimented on? Maybe JFK, maybe MLK or Malcolm X. Maybe the assassination of JFK, maybe that was done by someone who had went through the experiment and was a victim, and he got brainwashed, and his mind was being controlled by the CIA to assassinate JFK. Now, that's that's an interesting conspiracy. Let's see. Let's kind of talk about that for a minute. I'm going to read something here from ResearchGate. This is a little thing somebody wrote. It's called convert, or not convert, but like covert manipulations, examining the potential role of MKUltra in the assassinations of JFK, MLK, RFK, and Malcolm X. So let's read a little bit of what this person has to say. So, the assassinations of JFK, RFK, MLK, and Malcolm X represent some of the most pivotal and tragic moments in modern American history. While official narratives attribute these killings to lone gunmen, persistent questions remain about potential covert influences behind these events. One of the most controversial theories suggests a connection to MKUltra, the CIA's clandestine mind control program designed to manipulate behavior through psychological conditioning, hypnosis, and drug experimentation. This paper explores the possible role of MKUltra in these assassinations, focusing on declassified documents, witness testimonies, and investigative reports. By analyzing behavioral anomalies of the accused perpetrators, the influence of intelligence agencies, and evidence of document suppression, this study seeks to uncover whether psychological operations played a role in shaping these tragedies. Ultimately, understanding the extent of covert manipulations can provide insights into the broader implications for democracy, civil liberties, and government accountability. Interesting. So, okay. Now, here it is. Alright, so, okay, now it's we already know MKUltra started by the CIA in the early 1950s. And we know they used LSD, other amphetamines to, on the test subjects to alter their state of mind and their consciousness and everything. But they also used hypnosis, which, I used to be an unbeliever of hypnosis. And then I was a skeptic of hypnosis. But now I'm a believer of hypnosis. Because I've seen it happen, and I've heard it happen to people. And, especially right now, now that they're saying the CIA did, experiments, with, hypnosis and everything, it's not surprising. Because because it's not just, when people think of hypnosis, some people might think, if you don't know better, some people might think of waving a clock in front, a time or a watch or a clock or whatever in front of your face and saying, go to sleep, and then boom, you're asleep. It's like from the movies. That's movie, it's Hollywood. But, in a sense, it kind of works like that. But, but because we can kind of get hypnotized by watching TV. If you're just, why do people sit in front of the TV for 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours? I mean, they're just sitting there. I mean, I'm a victim of it too. Not necessarily TV, but like TikTok and YouTube. I'll sit there and I'll scroll on there for hours, and you're hypnotized by it, and you're just scrolling and scrolling, mindlessly, scrolling and everything. But I digress. So let's move on. Sensory deprivation and isolation. I wouldn't be surprised if they, beside the LSD, beside the hypnosis, and beside the electroshock therapy, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. If anybody's heard of the Russian sleep experiment, it's when they now it wasn't a real thing, but I mean, they probably did do something like this. There's just no evidence of it, but they put people in a room, and they wanted to see, the military put people in a room, and they wanted to see how long they could go without sleeping, and they went crazy after like the week, or really after like 3 days, but they went really crazy after like a week of not sleeping, because you need your sleep. Sleep is adamant. But I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA has done experiments, sleep deprivation experiments like this, while they were doing MKUltra. Not on its own, but while they were doing it. So, and man, really, when you're in that state of consciousness and your mind is gone, after electric shock therapy, after the drugs, after sleep deprivation, after hypnosis, I mean, I'm pretty sure the government can do anything. They can make you do anything. They can say, hey, take this gun and go shoot somebody. Now, hold on. I would protest and say, okay, well, if you're going to shoot JFK or MLK or RFK, anybody else, you have to be on your A game. All that being said, now maybe some things subside and everything, like all the psychological stuff is still there, but maybe you do have your senses. So maybe it could work like that. But I was going to say, if you're trying to shoot somebody after electric shock therapy and on LSD and everything, it ain't going to happen. You're going to be out of your mind. But the after effects of taking all that, and you're stuck with, just a yes sir, no sir obedience to the government, yes, then I think it could happen. So, okay, the assassination of the 1960s, a turning point in American history. And, we're not really going to read all this. We're going to read the main stuff. Okay, the assassinations of President JFK, MLK, and RFK were shockwaves throughout the nation, altering the course of history and fueling widespread distrust of government institutions. Each of these figures represented a threat to the status quo, whether through civil rights advocacy, challenges to military-industrial policies, or efforts to reconstruct social and economic frameworks. Their assassinations created fertile ground for speculation and conspiracy theories. For many questioning whether these events were isolated acts of violence or part of a broader, coordinated effort to suppress dissent. Several factors have contributed to the ongoing suspicion surrounding these events. Conflicting witness testimonies, missing evidence, and alleged government interference have fueled skepticism. Okay, so for those who don't know, I'm recording this in May 2nd, 2025, and the government is trying to release. I don't know if they have yet, but they're trying. I think they have. Actually, I think they have. They're trying to release the extra JFK files. You know, then they declassify them and everything. But you know, they declassify them, and they're we want the American people to know everything. And they came out with some stuff, but it wasn't really relevant. Like, it was some stuff that we kind of already knew. And because you think they're going to release some stuff that is going to make it, like, you think they're going to release something like, it wasn't really Harvey Oswald that shot him, which obviously we all know it wasn't really him, but it was somebody else, and everything. And, you think they're going to release those actual files files and everything and stuff? No. They're not going to release everything. They don't want us to know everything, obviously. That's but let's see. Okay. So, the assassinations marked a turning point, solidifying the deep divide between the government and the people, with many believing that hidden forces were at play behind these tragic events. So, okay, let's get to the theories. I don't know. Okay, let's see. We already know all this. Okay, yeah, they did LSD. And, Oh, interesting. Okay, approximately 20,000 pages of MKUltra related documents were accidentally preserved in a financial archive and later released through the Freedom of Information Act. So, just how, like, the JFK, it says, the JFK assassination files, yeah, they were released under the Freedom of Information Act, but they're not going to tell us everything, people. Like, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than what I'm reading, and but it's really interesting, and there's a whole bunch of experiments that the CIA has done. Not just MKUltra. But let's see. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm typing something in. Alright, so, because I want to read about I am interested in the JFK MKUltra thing, so we're going to read a little bit about that. Okay, so, some researchers and conspiracy theorists speculate that Lee Harvey Oswald, or even Jack Ruby, the guy who killed him, may have been manipulated or programmed under MKUltra or related CIA mind control projects. So, yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing. Me personally, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. I don't think so. My opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think it was the mob. And I have reason, I have my own reasons why. But, and we'll talk about that maybe in another episode. But, I do like reading about other theories, because that's the whole point of this. whole part and of this podcast, is to talk about this kind of stuff. So it is interesting. So Oswald's CIA connections. So Oswald defected to the Soviet Union, then returned to the U.S. without punishment. Some say this suggests he was part of a covert operation. His movements and associations overlap with known CIA fronts and informants. And that Jack Ruby. Ruby claimed he had no memory of shooting Oswald. Interesting. I did not know that. Okay. He later ranted in prison about people controlling him and being a part of a larger conspiracy. I may have read that. I can't remember. But if he did say that, that is that's pretty interesting. He said he didn't know. And you know what? You can't really blame him. If it's the case, if MKUltra really did take over Ruby's mind and Lee Harvey Oswald's mind, can you really blame him? Can you really find fault with them? Because they didn't know. They their mind is gone, and it's being controlled by the CIA. So, can you really blame them? I mean, yeah, you can blame them because their body, but it's like when you're controlled like that, it's like a robot. You don't have a choice. But let's see. Documents from MKUltra mention experiments in unwitting manipulation of people to perform actions against their will. So I mean that could be shooting somebody, just, hiring them. Okay, I know people probably have seen. I mean, I know everybody has probably seen the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes in the MCU, and how he gets controlled by Hydra, and he kills Tony Stark's parents, and in the third, or what is it? In the third Captain America movie, when when they're at the little compound or whatever, and they're watching the video of them dying. Steve Rogers, Captain America, is watching, or is telling Tony like, hey, he didn't know. It wasn't his fault. He still did it, but it wasn't his mind, because obviously, if he wasn't being controlled by Hydra, then he wouldn't have done it. Obviously, but he's being controlled by Hydra, and he kills not only them, but he's a hitman, and he kills a whole bunch of other people too. And so imagine it kind of. I imagine it kind of like that, where you don't have your own mind, and they tell you what to do, and I don't know. Maybe they do. This is kind of interesting, but maybe they do use some key, trigger words, if you will, because words do have power, and maybe they do. I don't know if it's Russian, but maybe they do use some key trigger words to make them obey. Because maybe what if they're living with their families and their loved ones? They're not going to be like a robot, because obviously they would suspect something. But maybe there's some key words that when they're being approached by the CIA or whatever, maybe they say, and then there's a switch that turns on, and they're more compliant. So it's funny. Okay, so this is actually kind of what we're talking about. A programmed assassin. So based on real CIA interest in Manchurian Candidate. I haven't seen that. Scenarios training someone to kill under hypnosis or after being triggered by a code word. See, some suggest Oswald didn't even fire the fatal shot, and his confessed behavior suggests he didn't know what was going on. Yeah, I mean, okay, when everything went down with JFK, they said it was just him. You know, it was him. He acted alone. He killed JFK by himself. Now, what is it, like, 65, 70, whatever it is, years later, we know that's not true. And in fact, most people, the majority of Americans believe it wasn't just a single shooter that killed JFK. And imagine maybe it was him. It was Oswald and somebody else. So two people. Now, I think some people may think there was three people. I think there was only two, and they were controlled. Maybe they were controlled by the CIA. After saying a code word, the switch turns on, and you can have them do anything. So now there's no hardcore evidence to support my theory, or other people who may believe this theory, but it is interesting. It is interesting, and now most of the MKUltra documents were destroyed, and what's left is fragmentary. So there's no hard evidence. There's no hard proof that links MKUltra directly to Oswald or Ruby in that matter. So, but it's interesting, and everything. And I think next podcast we'll we'll touch on some more stuff like this. Some more conspiracy theories. Robert, Kennedy. We'll definitely do a Martin Luther King theory, podcast and whatnot. But that's gonna be it for you guys, and I appreciate everybody for listening. And let me know, because I post these on YouTube. So let me know if there's a particular conspiracy theory that you guys want me to talk about, and I will. So leave comments, let me know, give me your feedback, and that's it. I will see you guys on another episode. Thanks for listening.